and welcome to a slightly different episode of the Mindset RX podcast. This is because I'm currently adjusting a camera, and I'm also putting this out on video because it is the CrossFit Open and its 18.1 is out. So this video and podcast are going out at roughly the same time through Facebook and of course iTunes and all that kind of crap. So you're not going to get all the usual prelim and housekeeping points of view on the podcast, which I'm sure you're grateful for. I want to talk about the correct mental approach and the desired mental approach for the open workout 18.1, which of course is a 20-minute AMRAP of, let me just bring it up here, 20-minute AMRAP of 8 toast bar, 10 dumbbell hang clean jerks, and a 12 or 14 cal row, or a variant of that if you are a masters or teen athlete and all that kind of stuff. So the number one point I want to make is that you guys have done all the hard work already. Like, the competition element, we might want to kind of bump up our arousal levels a slight amount, but you've done the hard work. This is the bit where you get to chill out. Like, there's no pressure attached to this bit at all. This is the point where you can sit back, you've done the work, enjoy it, and take the pressure off yourself. The pressure has been for the last 340 odd days, or however long it's been since the last open, or a bit less than that if you've been if you went a bit further, if you got to the regionals or to the games. So first of all, know that you've done the hard work. This is the time for you to kind of to enjoy the process and to really enjoy what you get to do. This is a chance to show off a bit and show what your work has been put towards. The goal is, or the next step actually, is to select whether your goal is to perform at your absolute best or to have fun. So knowing exactly what you guys want to get out of the open and this workout in particular is essential. Do you want to get to the CrossFit Games? Do you want to get to the regionals? Do you want to beat the people next to you? And are you taking this seriously? Essentially, what are the stakes in this workout for you? Are they high or are they low? Knowing this and knowing your objective is going to be key in tackling this mentally. So going in there with a purpose is essential. So what goes in hand with that as well is looking for a strategy. Do you have a strategy yet, or do you not have a strategy? Do you have as many reps as you're aiming for? Do you know what you're aiming for? Or do you have a kind of a pacing plan or anything like that? Because I'm not going to give you a pacing plan because, quite frankly, I think this is an individual thing. As I always talk about, one size fits one. You should have ideally figured out what mental approach works for you best in these longer WODs already. Otherwise, what I'm going to give you is only going to help you so much. If we have got that kind of figured and we have got that in place, it becomes very easy to implement because we know the strategies and we're not guessing. This is the point usually though where people start to guess, and this is a bad time to start guessing if your goals are, or your aspirations are, to compete at a very, very high level. So to go back to that point, you've got to have the strategy in place. You've got to go in there with a strategy for the warm-up. You've got to go in there with a strategy for actually taking it on. I would definitely visualize going through the steps if your goals are competitive of turning up to the gym, taking a second, maybe getting out your car or whatever, walking into the door, and then from that point, knowing each and every step up to 3, 2, 1, go, and then all the way through that 20 minutes until the last second. Know what you're going to be doing. Roughly pace yourselves. Have a goal. Have a exact pacing strategy there. I would say, because this is such a long WOD too, that it's going to be key, again, I keep using that word key, it's going to be a very important part of your strategy to have a mental reset button. I've spoken about this in podcasts previous to this. I think it was actually the most recent podcast, so the second to last one, I think, is the last time I spoke about mental reset button. But because it's such a long WOD, there's plenty of chance for your mind to go wandering, to lose presence and to lose focus. And there's going to be, if anyone's doing a Friday night light version of this, then there's all chances for distraction with people cheering you on, people encouraging you, maybe people you're competing against, people drinking near you, all this kind of shit. Like, there's a lot going on. So having a mental reset button developed and ready to go is going to help you. If you don't have one right now, I would recommend that you use a physical touch or something aligned with a physical touch and a very short phrase to try and bring you back to the moment if you find yourself distracted or overwhelmed or just feeling a bit not quite right after 3, 2, 1 has gone, and also probably beforehand as well. The next thing I want to say is to release yourself from the outcome. And this is so much easier said than done. It's something that Brent Fikowski talks about a lot, and whether you look at millennia of Taoism and philosophy and all that kind of stuff, or you look at the most cutting edge neuroscience and sports psychology, the people who perform at their best are the people who are able to put that pressure of the outcome to one side and to throw themselves into the process. Because the irony is, the only way you're going to perform at your best and reach the desired outcome is to take those steps back, and it's to release yourself from that outcome and give yourself that freedom to perform at your best. So those are the big points that I wanted to make before we get onto the specifics of the WOD. So you should have already assessed whether you are a competitive athlete or not. Like, what are your goals for this? Are you there to really drive home and make the regionals in the next step, or to compete at a very high level, or are your goal is to have fun? Like, that's a huge deal for this. So first of all, let's deal with the vitamin C crunchy tablets destroy me. If you're a super highly competitive athlete, let's look at the arch. And for those of you who haven't, haven't done so already, I would head over to mindsetrx.com/blog/the arch. And there's an article there called How to Master Any and Every WOD. And the idea is that on one side of the arch, you have a super high explosive single rep exercise. And on the other side of the arch, you have a very slow, like kind of almost like as close as CrossFit would get to Kundalini yoga, that kind of very slow, highly skilled, those like long duration exercises. So, and everything in between there fits on kind of a continuum between the 2 points. If we're highly competitive, we can plot all the points, and because of the stakes, mainly because you're desiring to compete at that much higher, and because your skill level and your familiarity with the type of movements is already going to be that much higher, you can imagine the pointer in the arch and like the percentage that it's on at about, let's say, 110 degrees or so. So if you got 0 degrees on the explosive side, and then 180 degrees on the very slow monostructural side, you have like in that about 110, 120 degrees, you have your pointer, which means that I would be breaking this down into, if we start to look at like macro and micro goals, I'll be looking at kind of 7-ish sets of roughly 3 minutes. So figure out how much work you're going to be doing in 7 minutes, and then in 3 minutes or so, like roughly 3 minutes, and then break that down backwards, and then you've got a target for each 3 minute block. If you start to go any higher than this, if you start to go like, I don't know, 10, 15 sets, it starts to get overwhelming, and it gets like a bit too much to keep hold of. If you go any less than this, obviously you're thinking like, okay, it's only 20 minutes, I've got to get this many reps, and it's very difficult to pace. So I'd focus that there. The level of assertiveness. This isn't going to be an aggressive kind of on the paternal side of this spectrum. It's not going to be a aggressive approach to a WOD. this is going to be a fairly cool, calm, collected. So that 110, 120 degrees is pointing at about 4 out of 10, 4.5 out of 10 on the assertiveness. So assertiveness meaning if it was a 10 out of 10 assertiveness, it'd be like, get your shit together, you're going to fuck this up now, go, 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 go. And that kind of aggressiveness. If it was a 1 out of 10 assertiveness, it would be a, don't worry, you've got this. And like a bit more of the maternal side. This being said, you should already have this in place. You should be able to kind of point exactly where on the arch that your mindset is and the workout is, and then have your go-to phrases for this WOD. On the other side, like another aspect of this is we're looking at the forgiving versus unforgiving nature. Also, due to the point this is 18.1, there's a lot of pressure here. I would go to being about 6 out of 10 on the forgiving kind of scale. I.e., if shit goes wrong and it is far from ideal, don't worry, you've got plenty of time to work on this. You've got so much time to work on this and recover and all that kind of stuff. So take some time. This isn't a big deal. If you screw up a rep, if you screw up 2 reps, if you screw up a whole round, you've got plenty of time to work it back. So don't fret and give yourself some more loving phrases on the way back. And then we're looking at association versus disassociation. If you're highly associated in the movement, think about a snatch or throwing a sandbag over your shoulder as high as you can. Let's use the sandbag over your shoulder because this is a highly kind of unskilled exercise and very explosive. For this exercise, you want to be associated. So you want to be completely in the moment. You want to be completely present and thinking about every fiber contracting, exploding through, and very, very present. If you are on the far end of that, and let's use a like 10k run for example, you'd want to be fairly disassociated. So that'd be like a 9 out of 10 or a 10 out of 10 disassociation. So you'd want to be thinking about something else. Let's use the crazy example. Let's go all the way to, because a 10k run doesn't give it quite enough perspective. Let's use the example of like the Moab. I think it's a 240, which is 238 mile marathon or ultra marathon. Sorry. And for this, you don't want to be thinking about putting every step down. You don't want to be thinking about like, okay, I'm just going to pull my hamstring in, contract the medial head of the hamstring, like kind of then landing on the ball of my foot and all that kind of stuff. You don't want to be thinking about the technique in that moment. You want to be disassociated from the moment. This is a 7 out of 10 in terms of disassociation, maybe a 6 out of 10, which is the hard zone. The CrossFit spectrum is difficult, and that's exactly why as a sport it's very difficult, because you don't mentally disassociate and you don't mentally associate very often, like completely to one extreme, that is. So we want to be looking at our levels of disassociation about 7 out of 10, and this is more a pointer for the highly attuned athlete to the idea of disassociation versus association. Where this changes, so hopefully that makes sense for all the highly competitive athletes. And if that's you and you're watching on Facebook, feel free to stick any questions on there if you do have any questions. And also, if you have any questions through the podcast as well, feel free to kind of get them to me via social media and all that kind of good stuff. If you are the other side of the equation for competitiveness. Is competitiveness a word? Yeah, it is. Why not? Don't doubt yourself, Tom. The side of the arch, or the pointer in the arch, will be much further across, and we're looking at about 160 degrees from like 0 again being on the completely explosive side, and the 180 degrees being on the kind of the very cool, calm, collected, chilled out side of things. So we're looking at about 160 degrees. 160 degrees means that, it's there. Let's face it, because the skills for you are a bit tougher. They're a bit more technical for you. Toes to bar are a bit more technical. The clean and jerk you're probably less familiar with. The longer WOD is not only longer for you, and there's a lot of volume there for you, but you're probably less familiar with this style as well. So that pointer comes right over to about 160 degrees, which means that I'd be breaking this down into 10 sets. give or take 10 sets. Like let's do that for ease of maths. So 2 minutes, like how many rounds do you want to get out, or how many reps do you want to get out every 2 minutes? That's your choice. When we look at the level of assertiveness, this is going to be much kinder, like considerable amount kinder. Like phrases like, you've got this, don't worry, take your time, you're free to do as you want, like that kind of pacing, that would be ideal. Whereas the highly competitive athlete is just going to have a bit more edge in the self-talk there. And let me just say as well, there won't be much, if you get into the flow for this, there won't be that much time for self-talk because you'll be too separated from the movement. Again, that forgivingness is going to be much higher as well. If you screw up, who cares? Like, you're there to have fun. You've just admitted to me, if you're in this camp, you're there to have fun. So what's the point of like, if your paycheck doesn't sit on doing well in this WOD, don't fret it. Like, really don't fret it. Take it down. Like, and then we've got every spectrum in between. But of course, don't fret it in this situation. So be kind to yourself. And then disassociate as well. 20 minutes is going to be a long time for a lot of people who are taking on this WOD. A long time, especially if you don't have a history in endurance or just haven't done many long WODs recently. This is going to be a challenge for you. So have some reference points of, okay, I'm going to take a step back. Okay, like maybe some times when you're exercising it felt very easy. For me, I always use the example and always come back to a time when I was running along the coast and it was a beautiful view and a beautiful day, and I remember that, and that's the kind of pacing that I go for, and I remind myself of that. So that is it for today's podcast and today's video. So if you enjoyed this video and if you enjoyed the podcast, please feel free to share it. If you enjoyed the podcast, please go on to iTunes, give it a 5-star review, leave me nice, kind words for my very delicate soul, and share the love as well amongst some friends. That's it for the podcast side. If you enjoyed the video, please feel free to share it again. Leave me any comments if you have any questions, and I shall see you guys very, very soon.